is not just stone reclaimed from ruin, it is memory reclaimed from years of denialism. A temple broken again and again by intent, and yet Somnath rose rebuilt by faith, defiance, and civilizational self-respect. The Prime Minister has paid a tribute to Somnath and has remarked that the Somnath Swabhiman Parv is commencing auspiciously. 1,000 years ago, in January 1026, the Somnath temple endured the first attack in history. The attack of the year 1026 and the numerous assaults that followed thereafter could not shake our eternal faith. On the contrary, these strengthened the sentiment of India's cultural unity, and the Somnath temple was repeatedly revived and rebuilt. As India marks 1,000 years of that original desecration, the question refuses to fade. Was Somnath's destruction merely about conquest or about religious supremacy? From Somnath to Ayodhya to Kashi, why does reconciliation always demand Hindu amnesia? And can a civilization truly heal if its wounds are acknowledged only in whispers and history itself is branded communal? We ask that question tonight. To Dr. Vikram Sampath, who needs no introduction, is a very, very accomplished historian. And I want to begin with you and ask you, Dr. Sampath, what does Somnath truly symbolize for India today? Faith or unfinished history?
Thank you, Rahul. I think this is truly a very, very momentous and a historic occasion in the life of a civilization. As you rightly pointed out, I think Somnath becomes a symbol of a continuity and a fearless resistance and resilience that our ancestors put up over exactly 1,000 years. We remember only Mahmud Ghazni and 1026 CE when the first attack on this very, very ancient shrine took place. But in the subsequent 800, 900 years, there were a series of iconoclastic, attacks, and we could talk about that in a little more detail. But in the face of all of it, whether it is Somnath, whether it is the Ram Janmabhoomi at Ayodhya, or Mathura Krishna Janmabhoomi, or the Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, or numerous other shrines which today stand, in a contestation in the legal courts of India, they all stand as symbols of our both our ancestors, civilizational resistance, and also the Hindu mindset, which has this patience to also reclaim all of this in a legal and peaceful manner, even in independent India after the formation of a democratic republic. Our abidance to the rule of law and to go through it through the peaceful motions, I think that is also underscored. And probably there are very few shrines in the world where after an Islamic occupation, there has been a reclamation back to the original faith. And the Ram Janmabhoomi is probably the singular example, which is why it hurts so many people who do not wish to see Bharat and Sanatan Dharma flourish. And this particular week, Rahul, I think is a wound in the heart and soul of the Indian civilization, because it was on 8th of January, 1026 CE, that the marauder Mahmud Ghazni comes among his several raids to India. And with this particular raid was specifically with the intention of demolishing Somnath. He had heard about this shrine sitting back in Ghazni, and these stories are accounted not by later historians, but some of his own contemporaries. One of his court historians, Abu Nasr al-Utbi, in short called Utbi, he writes in his Kitab al-Yamini, which is in Arabic. He travels with Mahmud on these raids, and so it's an eyewitness account that he writes. That in his court he's told that there is this beautiful place of where the shrine called Sumanat is being worshipped by the infidels, and that grants moksha and so on. And so he specifically wants to demolish it. Now he comes all the way to Gujarat, which is then ruled by the Chalukya Solanki rulers. And Bhim Dev, who is the ruler, he's taken by surprise by this attack. And so he runs away and retreats into another fort. And so driving through Anihilavada Patan, which was the capital, he makes a very, very easy arrival at Somnath on the 8th of January, 1026. But what Mahmud is really shocked to see is that even while the ruler has run away, this fort of Somnath, it was literally like a huge fortress. It was actually protected by 50,000 common Hindus who are some part of this army, some also, various castes, also farmers, priests, all of them with their very, very rudimentary, weaponry to defend this place of worship. And it is said that it took him 3 days to slaughter all of them, fight with them, and then enter the shrine. I mean, he probably didn't expect that, when the king himself has run away, we would have given a free pass to the invaders' army. But it took 3 days, and common in Hindus, and mind you, people of all castes, actually defending and protecting the shrine. And later, Al-Utbi mentions that when he goes near the Garbhagriha, all the pujaris come running and they tell him that you are a lutera, you want money, so take as much money as you want and save our deity. And then Utbi and later people like Farishta and others recount that he laughs and says that if I do that, then my legacy will be remembered in history as a trader of idols. I want my name to be recorded in history as a Buddh Shikan or a breaker of idols. And so, saying that, he demolishes the linga and then it is pounded into small pieces. And then the powder is usually, I mean, this was the common template. The murti is always demolished and the powder is then put into the steps of masjids in the home country, so that every time the faithful step on them, the religion of the kafir is subdued. But then Mahmud did not realize that even after he did this and went back, common Indians as well as other rulers would still hound him for this. You had the chivalrous Bhoj Parmar attacking him on the way back for what he did in Somnath, and literally Mahmud and his troops had to run away back to Ghazni without venturing into any other misadventure. And on the way, we also have an interesting account where a common Hindu actually appears as somebody, a travel guide, because by then these people have gone into the deep deserts of Kathiawar and Rajasthan, and they're lost somewhere there. They're looking for water. And this common man comes and says, I'm a travel guide. I'll take you to the nearest stream to quench your thirst. And he misguides them and takes them into the deepest recesses of the desert. And finally, Mahmud and his men, they suspect foul play and they catch him. And then when he's asked to confess, he says, I was misguiding you only because of a sense of revenge that I wanted to take for what you did to our deity. I don't know anything about a river here, and I was misleading you so that all of you die of thirst. So, the manner in which he literally had to save his life and rush back to Ghazni also speaks a volume of the fact that kings and commoners alike stood against this, breakage.
So this is very important, because I'm glad that you touched upon that. That was going to be my question, really, because many people have tried to suggest that this desecration was really about power and never about imposing religious supremacy. So I'm glad that you clarified that. But I want to ask you, because if you move forward, has Islamic theology ever come to terms with Hindu sacred spaces? And that's really a fundamental question.
I think the answer is very obvious, Rahul. It hasn't. And I think the 1,000-odd years of a civilizational conflict rests only and only on this. On the one hand, you have a civilization like ours, a belief system, which says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti, there is one truth, then there are many paths to lead to it, and so on. But it is faced with a cult which very strongly believes that my way is what it is, my way or the highway. And anybody who doesn't subscribe to this worldview will be relegated to hellfire, or it is our bounden religious duty to actually convert people either by coercion or force or inducement. So
let
the
me
Abrahamic and the Sanatan keep clashing this way.
So let me ask you, can reconciliation happen without accepting historical wrongdoing? Because one of the reasons why we are commemorating this event is not to revisit or scratch at wounds. It is basically to come to terms with civilizational memory and a desecration really of history. And a lot of people will continue to say that speaking about temple destruction is communal and this, that, the other. So where do you come in on this?
Rahul, history does, offer a space where you can heal from past wounds. It also offers a space where you can learn from past mistakes. I mean, world over, you have Holocaust museums which do not celebrate the Holocaust. They are actually a grim reminder of what happened in the past and how these mistakes should never be committed again for peaceful coexistence. So I'm afraid, especially after independence, the Marxist Nehruvian consensus on history writing in this country chose a very simplistic route of denialism, negationism of all these truths which stared you in the face. I mean, as I'm saying, Utbi and others, they wrote with pride. Mahmud Ghazni loved to have the name Butchikan, suffix to his name. And we have modern Indian historians, including the likes of Professor Romila Thapar, who then argue constantly that this was not for theological reasons, it was for loot. Of course, you have the wicked Brahmins always as your perennial, punch bag, who you will say looted the people, put all the money in the temple, and to get that this was done. But after the first, demolition, in successive demolitions, what money was there? By the time Aurangzeb demolished it, 600, 700 years later in 1706, there was no money in the Somnath Mandir. So by then, all Hindu Rajas had realized that keeping money in a temple was the surest way of ensuring that a looter would come and destroy it. So this argument falls flat on the face. And I think communities today need to be told very, very clearly two things. One is, they are not responsible for the atrocities and the crimes that all these marauders and barbarians, whether it is Ghazni, Ghori, Timur, Aurangzeb, Tipu Sultan, and all these others created. But the second point is also equally important, Rahul, if reconciliation has to happen, that communities today should not look up to these barbarians as their role models. There should be no valorization of these characters. Unless that happens, I think reconciliation, brotherly coexistence is a far-fetched dream.
So on that point, there is a constant refrain or a lament, let's say, that the proponents of temple reclamation, for instance, or proponents of those who want to celebrate events of the past today, 1,000-year, millennial, this, that, the other, are accused of blurring the lines between Indian Islam and political Islam. So how do you respond to this?
I mean, we do have strains of Indian Islam which do talk about a certain degree of syncretism, Rahul. But I think the fundamental tenets which talk about only one path, and that is something we hear on a daily basis 5 times a day across our cities and towns and villages. Unless there is an acceptance that, okay, that would actually fundamentally, I think, shake the tenets of the faith. But can we make concessions? Today, you have the Middle East and other places where, there is increasing space given for other religions. You have the Swaminarayan temple coming up in the UAE and other places, where even grudgingly, if there is an acceptance that, okay, while I may not believe in your tenets, but still I'll allow you to coexist. I think until that happens, all this is, talk which doesn't have much meaning. We're seeing what is happening in our immediate neighborhood. We are seeing what has always been happening in Pakistan and the horrible conditions of the Hindus in Bangladesh today, which is unfolding in front of our eyes day in and day out. And even after all of this, if we want to, willfully close our eyes and chant homilies, I think nobody can really protect us.
So let me ask you, what does real reconciliation look like?
I mean, real reconciliation is precisely that. Acknowledge, look your history in the eyes, and make peace with it. And all communities understand that these were barbaric events. So the destruction of Somnath is as much a blot for an Indian Muslim as it is for an Indian Hindu or a Buddhist or anyone. These were attacks on our civilization. Reconciliation also means we don't pin the blame down on a particular community today, but an acknowledgement of these excesses of the past needs to be done if real healing has to happen. We had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, where even after such a terrible reign of apartheid, where all kinds of tortures were inflicted on the racial groups, even after that there was a sense of Ubuntu. There which Desmond Tutu started. I think we, on the other hand, the Nehruvian consensus has been to deny this, say all of this is exaggeration, call it communal, call it Hindutva, call it all kinds of other pejoratives, and then try to think that by doing this somehow these past ghosts will not resurface. Today is an information age. Every young Indian man or woman will have access to information on his or her smartphone. You can't befool them by sitting at the pulpit of the state and kind of sermonize to them that this is the truth as I see it, as I did a discovery of India, and this is how I want all my court historians to write accounts, which is what happened, I think, after independence. Today, that status quo is being challenged on a daily basis. Of course, a lot of hogwash on social media, but a lot of it is also, I think, authenticated historical information.
Dr. Sampath, as always, thank you very much. Those were enlightening. It's a very enlightening conversation, enlightening thoughts, viewers. I think we've established here that this is not about Hindu revivalism. This is just about addressing the ghosts of the past and acknowledging that this civilization needs to have a moment where it feels that there are those who are committed to its longevity. That's really about it, viewers. We leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching.